As a product manager working in big tech with a non-traditional background, I think it's important to shed light on my journey into tech. So for those who don't know me, my name is Savione Wright. I currently work at Microsoft and I've been there about 4 years doing product management. As a person working in big tech, without a traditional tech background, I think it's important for us to share and shed light on the journeys of those who did not take the traditional route into tech. So, for example, myself, I went to Morehouse College here in Atlanta, Georgia. And for starters, let's just say product management was not even on my radar. I was not even going to school to be in product management. I actually wanted to be a biomedical engineer. My goals at that point in my life was to design prosthetic limbs and work in like bionics. So I went to Morehouse College because they had a dual degree engineering program where I would be able to do 3 years in applied physics there, and then I would transfer to a partnering engineering school to do my biomedical engineering degree. My goals was to go from bachelor's, study my master's, get my doctorate, come up with like my product while I'm working on my doctorate, start my company, my life's set. And that was my plan. So going through college, doing these different courses all related to physics with the end goal of trying to get to my engineering school. Like I said, product management was not on my radar. Now, let's fast forward to about senior year. Now, what was supposed to be a 3 year program at Morehouse for me ended up being a 4 year program. And ultimately, when it came time to apply to those different engineering schools, the top two schools that I wanted to go get into, which were the University of Michigan was my number one and Georgia Tech was my number two, I didn't get in. And I really didn't want to go to any other school that was on that list. So the woman who's now my wife, she was my girlfriend at the time, she basically kind of helped me just think like, hey, do you potentially think or see with your current skills and experiences, could you see yourself like, just graduating with the physics degree? Because I was already on that applied physics route. Transitioning it wouldn't be too difficult and just kind of getting into work. So I'm like, not really sure, wasn't really thinking about that, but I'm open to, exploring different roles. So, of course, Microsoft had been visiting our school a few times during that like senior year. And basically, they came, had a presentation in one of my chemistry classes, and I basically saw this man. I don't remember what his name is at this moment, but I looked at this man. He's explaining what he does. I'm feeling out his whole aura, and I ultimately said like, if this man can do product management, I definitely can do it. And much less if he can do it at Microsoft, then I definitely can do it as well. So ever since, that moment, doing that reflection and understanding like, okay, product management could potentially be a thing, but I have no clue what it's about at this moment. One thing that kind of exposed me to tech was I was able to land a internship at Dell my junior year summer, so the summer leading up to my senior year. And when my experience at Dell also showed me a lot about what it's like working in big tech. What is the true culture like? How are the people? Are they really as smart as we perceive them to be? And I got to feel that out, and ultimately I knew it was something that I could do, which even sparked my like, oh, tech could potentially be a route for me. Once again, not really knowing much about product management just yet. So a little bit fast forward back to our senior year now. And, first things first, it's like, I don't know anything about product management. I need to understand what they do and where can one apply product management. So that was the first phase. It was just like a whole lot of personal research that I did just to learn about product management, program management, their differences, you know, differences within different tech companies and what they mean and what their roles are. Of course, looked at a lot of different job descriptions to get an understanding of like what the responsibilities were. And my biggest takeaway from that research, what at least kind of helped me build confidence in, even wanting to pursue it, was around the soft skills that the role entailed. I did really feel like, hey, with a physics degree, I'm not your coder, and I actually had in the fall semester of my senior year applied for a Microsoft software engineering product manager role. The technical interview could not do it. I wasn't as proficient in coding and understanding like different algorithms, and you really have to know that stuff in order to land a role around like software engineering product manager. So through that experience, learned a lot about the interview process. And now we're getting into spring. I've met with some people. I understand what a product manager does. I'm aware of the different soft skills that they use, and I'm feeling confident that, at least with the experiences that I've had throughout my time in college, the soft skills that I've gained, I know can be beneficial to this role. And I just figured, hey, the technical aspects of it, I feel like I can learn on the way. But along that research, it also took me getting clear. It's like, yes, I want to be a product manager, but where? Like, what discipline? Yes, it's big tech, or yes, in tech, I'll say, but do I want to work in security? Do I want to work in web development? Like, my interest at that time was web development. And, I'm always like, oh, I want to build a website. I want to have an engineering team one day, I want to build my own app. However, no clue, no experience in actually doing it. But it was like, hey, UX product manager was an area that kind of came up during my research. So user experience is kind of like, hey, like understanding user needs, being able to formulate recommendations and deliver a product to them that meets their needs. And whether you do that for me, where it's like at the time I was working in college, I was working at Lacoste. And yes, these are polos and clothes you're selling. But at the end of the day, it's still the same experience as far as like customer comes in, they may have an event or an occasion they want to dress up for. They may not know what they want to wear. I might have to ask some questions to get an understanding on like what their preferences are, what their needs are, and then I ultimately make a recommendation on, hey, the types, or maybe this polo with these pants, maybe this shirt with these shorts, and we provide a recommendation. And I think it's the same principle concepts that one can apply there, or at least I directly took from that experience, at least, to say, hey, like, product management, I could do this as well. It's just on a different type of product. Like, this is a website we're building. So in doing my research and understanding that like the PM can kind of be in the center of the product development life cycle in a way. And when I say that, that's like with the engineers, with the designers, with the researchers, with the content writers, being in a little bit of all of those conversations, while ultimately like being a part of business development and like strategic initiatives, like coming up with the decisions on how we should move forward, I felt would be a really good place to like learn and be. I had the confidence at the time to say, what, as much as I don't know about this, I'm willing to learn it all. Like if I was able to learn what I learned in my physics curriculum, and that was like really tough on me, I'm sure like this, I can get this as well. It's just going to take some time. So I know that was a lot to say, but ultimately, like, there was a phase of like, one, awareness that product management exists. There was the connection that, hey, I have the soft skills. Like, this is really a soft skill led role. Like, you can have the technical checkbox, yes, but and like, I definitely is, I think, is a plus to be able to like not only articulate what you're building, but how you're building it. And I think it leads to a better relationship with your engineers. But at least for a starter or someone just kind of figuring out about it, I had to lean heavily on the soft skills. I knew I had the soft skills to do this role effectively, and I would continue to develop them. No, they weren't perfect, no, they weren't the greatest, but ultimately I had that confidence that, I could do what I can today and I'll learn and get better along the journey. So cool. Did my research, now I'm meeting with people in Microsoft. Thankfully I had a landlord at the time. He happened to know a Microsoft recruiter. That Microsoft recruiter ended up getting in touch with me. and getting me in touch with someone who PM, I won't mention her name, but who basically was able to give me an idea of what the interview process would be like, outside of just, what research I normally did, on YouTube or reading different forums. But that experience, getting that like coaching and just talking one on one about what the culture is like, how's her work day, and what she does as a product manager, it even more added to my confidence as far as like going into the interview process. So now, before I even jump to interview process, now you have to get to like, I've done my research. I've met some people. I understand what I want to do. I understand the area in which I want to apply product manager. I know I want to do web development. Now it was about my resume. And in that fall semester of my senior year, there was a lot of no's I was getting. I was doing a lot of interviewing at tech companies, but a lot of no's. So there was definitely a revamp of the resume that was needed, and my wife was able to really help me with that a lot. And that basically included just, for one, anything that's not true on your resume has got to be cut. It's one thing to like have an interest in something, and it's another thing to be proficient in something. If you are proficient in it, say you're proficient in it. If you have an interest in it, there's nothing wrong with saying you have an interest in it. And that's kind of what I did with the web development space. Like, you know, in my interests section, I called out my interest in web development and app design and user experience, like given that I was applying for a user experience product manager role. So what I learned during that process was you can't just have a general resume and apply to multiple roles with that same resume. Each resume must be catered to the role. And when I say catered, I don't just necessarily mean I look at this role, I see the job, the role, the responsibilities and the duties, and I'm gonna like copy paste what is there onto my resume. It's really about doing an assessment of your current experiences, regardless of what they are. Understanding like what are the principal duties, and when for me the principal duties I kind of connected to like what are the soft skills being practiced here. Remember, like my whole story, my whole angle at approaching this was my strength on my soft skills. So in analyzing the roles that I was applying to, and really it wasn't that much. I knew I wanted to work at Microsoft, so I was very, specific with those roles. But when I saw the job description, what I was able to do is think about my different experiences that I had and the soft skills that I used, and figured out a way to articulate how that experience can help me with this experience or this duty or achieve whatever the problem or goal that this team was hiring for ultimately. And, that exercise took some time because, you really have to like think about what is it that you really did, especially at like a place like Lacoste, what did you really do? You weren't just selling polos, you were providing customer experience. You were providing a form of customer service, which is also included at some point in the web development process. Like you have to interact with your customers. So I just tried to look for those soft skill strengths that I had within my current experiences and figured out how I can connect them succinctly to this role. So, and that's like a whole exercise we can go into, but essentially that's what it is. And I would say one key gem that I put on my resume that I think could be beneficial to set you apart from other applicants is a personal summary. And the personal summary, how the approach or angle I choose to take about creating one of those is you already can see my experiences, where I've gone to school, what I've done, my projects. You can see all of that. But in my personal summary, I'm not just going to reiterate all of that. My personal summary, I'm going to get this person reading my resume into my brain and how I think. Give them a sense of who you are as a person. And if you keep in mind that the personal summary is the opportunity for, this interviewer and or team to get a sense of who you are. And understand that you're being hired to see if you're a good fit for a team. And if you put that resume up against different resumes, with people with the similar skill sets as you have or similar experiences as you, what is going to be that differentiator? And I think the personal summary is your opportunity to be a differentiator from others. How? Because you're not only telling someone what you did or the experiences you had, but you're giving them an opportunity to get an understanding of how you work, how you think and how you can contribute. And that's the power of a personal summary, I'll say. So ultimately, there was research done, about the role. That's the first thing once I got clear on what I wanted to work in. I met with different folks, was able to, network and meet people within the company to get a sense, also part of research. Then there was the phase of resume improvement. Like, I needed to tailor my resume to the roles that I was applying for. And it's not about just taking what is said on the resume and ensuring those words are used in your resume. It's more about, at least for my journey, what it was I see the underlying soft skills that are being expressed through what this responsibilities and duties section is saying. What are the soft skills that I gained in my experiences that I can speak to for those responsibilities and duties of this role? And once I was clear on that, a method I chose was to create one-liner statements for each of my experiences. Take that one or leave it. For me, my logic behind that was this interviewer only has my resume and what is on there to question me on. So if I'm very strategic with all the information and the content that I put on this resume, I know or can anticipate the types of questions that I can be asked. So personally, one-liner statements for me shows not only the ability to be succinct and clear with what one was doing, but it also, you can only ask me a question based on this now, and odds are I probably already have some type of response or can speak to whatever that experience is that was on my resume. So the resume cultivation or creation is going to be very key in this aspect, because that is what's going to get you the interview. And that's the hardest part for people sometimes is, you have all the soft skills and you got the what it takes once you get the interview, but some people struggle with even getting the interview. And for those who struggle with getting the interview, we'll have those videos for you soon as well. But at least for my journey, that's what it took for me. And now here's the crazy part. So now, remember the landlord I told you, who knew the Microsoft recruiter, who ended up getting in touch with me, you know, it was a weird way it kind of all happened. And I met with that landlord to discuss real estate for future stuff that I was thinking about. And he happened to ask me about, hey, what's going on after school, and I still was figuring it out. It was almost probably January, February of the spring semester. And remember, this is 2020. I'm graduating, so COVID is on the horizon here. It's very late in the hiring season, so it's very unorthodox to even get hired that late. But, crazy day, crazy moment. God was kind of just all over it. So yeah, this man gets in touch with this recruiter. Recruiter's like, hey, send me your resume. Me and the wife spend our time, revamping the resume. We get the resume to him. Like I said, he linked me up with someone to, help kind of coach me on my resume skills. I did a couple mock interviews. And went for the interviews, and I had to do. First round was a call, like a phone call. Then I passed that one, was able to do the round of four. Did that one, and then I had to do one more. The team that I originally had applied for found someone else for the role within the company. So, given that I had gotten all 5 yeses from my interviews thus far, there was one hiring manager who was willing to speak to me still. And I finally got that yes from her. So I did a total of 6 interviews, one 30 minutes and the 5 1 hour interviews. And they were pretty much, I would say, back to back to back, maybe like 15 minutes in between each one. And then that last one happened like the day after because I thought I was going to get a decision after the four. But yeah, and I did it and I got my offer sometime, I think it was in March, I believe, March of 2020. And yeah, the rest is history. I moved to Redmond, Washington, because that's where the role was, that's where the headquarters is. And lived out there for a couple of years, experienced it, and now I'm living back in Atlanta, still working on that team, which has been really cool, like, and just been great for work-life balance overall. So that's pretty much my journey. I know it's kind of a little bit of everywhere with that, but as someone with the non-traditional background, I think like my biggest takeaway for you all is product management is about the soft skills. The core of product management. Like I said, yes, you can be technically great. You can know how to code everything, but you're not being the greatest product manager by being all in the code all the time. You know, it's good to understand the details, and I agree, but you help others be successful. You're responsible for the success of the product you work on. Remember that. As a product manager, you're responsible for the success of the product you're working on. And then also, like, you can take it to the next level by contributing to the success of those stakeholders working on that project you're working on. And that's how you influence without authority. Another major soft skill. So remember, like, the soft skills is what's gonna help you the most, at least to me in my journey. Soft skills is what helped me the most, and I would highly encourage like you all to lean into not only the technical skills you need to develop, but what soft skills can you develop? Because, you know, your ability to communicate your ideas is going to be like so key and so important in a world that it can be very ambiguous, that can be very overwhelming, that can feel like there's multiple priorities going on at the same time. So one's ability to like assess what's going on, be clear and articulate when speaking, have strategic thinking skills, have emotional intelligence, communication competence, knowing like, hey, I can't speak to my engineers the same way I speak to my designers, and I'm not saying because they're not my direct reports, but to the stakeholders that may be working on the project that I am responsible for driving. So that's my journey. I hope that brings you into the light of kind of like how I got here, which clearly has not been a direct path. And it just goes to show that like you don't need to like have full product management in your background in order to be one, nor do you need a CS degree. At this point, I really don't think you need a degree, but I think it's good practice. It's good exposure. Physics has nothing to do with product management today directly. However, the way physics has kind of helped me to think that analytical process thinking skills that I've gained to be able to like, you know, it's one thing to talk about the project or talk about a process going on, but it's another thing to like be able to be the process, and physicists are able to think on that atomic level, you know, and that's what I appreciate, and that's how I contribute as well. And taking complex topics and break it down into simpler terms for someone, that's a major skill that I use when I speak to my leadership, who is not in the day-to-day work, but they need to understand like status of that day-to-day work. They need to understand risks of that day-to-day work, and how they can contribute to maybe unblocking me or helping me with that. So there's a lot of transferable skills that one can gain from various experiences in their lives, and it's really about like doing that digging and being able to identify where those transferable soft skills are. Or it doesn't have to be soft skills itself, but where are those transferable skills in whatever experience that I have today? into product management. And if you can connect or see the soft skills within your experiences, I know with the right language in place, you can connect it or be able to articulate what you can do in the product management space. So I hope that helps. Once again, my name is Savione Wright, and I've created this channel for those interested in being a product manager or current product managers trying to improve or grow in their career, and also ultimately to increase awareness of the product management discipline. I really do think that product management is the pathway to leadership. So by cultivating product managers, I ultimately feel like we're cultivating tomorrow's leaders. And like if you're one of those leaders or you feel like you are or can be, hey, join the army. Like I'm building an army here, and we're gonna be the leaders of tomorrow. So I just want to leave you with that.